Welcome to Heads Up HR, the podcast from QuestCover, bringing you the latest HR insights, legislation updates, and practical advice to keep your business compliant and your people supported. No jargon, no stress, just advice you can actually use, and the chance to be part of a workplace community that's learning and growing together. Hello listeners, I'm Perry Johnson, your host for Heads Up HR, and we're thrilled to have you join us for this new era at Quest. Whether you're listening on your commute to work or in those spare hours in the office, this is a brilliant way to catch up on the latest in how we can support your business. Today, I'm very pleased to be joined by our very own Head of Business Development, Miles Day. Hello Miles, how are you?
Hi Perry, very excited to be here. The first guest.
The very first.
On our brand new podcast.
So, as our Head of Business Development, I thought you would be the perfect person to bring along to kind of introduce Quest in this first initial introductory episode. For those who may not be aware, who are Quest and what do we do?
So Quest are a HR and health and safety provider. We're based in Leicester. National company. We're going to our fourth decade, so not far short of 40 years experience. And what do we do? At our core, we support SMEs who potentially don't have in-house HR and health and safety teams to look after them, but are still measured the same way as a big national company. Quest get you to compliance on the health and safety side, but we also support and protect you against the risks and dealing with employees who may be either causing you problems or maybe going on maternity, whatever it may be. At its core, Quest is a business that looks after those key areas. So I always say to people, it's like having a HR department in a different building or a health and safety department that you can just call on and get them to come and look after you and do an audit and look after you. That's in essence what we do.
100%. And I think in my personal experience, in the time that I've been with Quest, as somebody who doesn't have HR qualifications or knowledge, well, I've gained a lot of HR knowledge through working here, but as somebody who traditionally didn't have that, I think there's so many different aspects to it. If you're not in that world, if you're not involved in HR in an active way, which a lot of small and medium-sized businesses wouldn't have in-house expertise, wouldn't have the capacity to have in-house expertise, it's almost impossible to be able to keep on top of how many different obligations you have across HR, health and safety, and legal areas. So I think that's what we experience a lot and what we see a lot from clients and from people contacting our advice line is they have heard a slight inkling of a future upcoming change, but they don't understand the full ramifications of what that change means for their business. So in that sense, we're like more of a community with our clients.
Absolutely. We're an SME ourselves. We operate nationally. We're relatively successful and are growing really, really well, but it's because of our personal relationship with our customers and understanding that maybe the legislative changes, which would be easily managed in a big global organisation, it's going to be a real challenge to an SME to implement, to making sure that management are trained, to ensure that the processes are followed correctly. I say it all the time, I don't come across many SME employers who understand everything about the HR and the health and safety world. They know they have responsibilities. They don't want to fall down. They don't want to be non-compliant, but invariably they find themselves there because they're busy trying to grow and run their business, and that's where we come in.
Yeah, we're there to kind of be their backup in that way. They don't have to worry about HR and legislation changes if they've got expert and professional advice just a phone call away. And it's not just our kind of direct clients who benefit from that advice. Our community branches much further than that, and we are part of some quite big and important partnerships. We have some quite comprehensive support that we offer throughout the UK through our partnerships. So I was wondering if you wanted to just talk a little bit on that.
Absolutely. We're blessed to have looked after the British Chamber of Commerce for 16 years. They've just signed up to another 3 years with us, which is fantastic news. And in essence, nearly every chamber member, there's a couple of chambers that we don't look after yet, but over 80,000 chamber members have access to advice line, document library and compliance review, which is something that we brought in 3 years ago and added to that level of service. We also look after the Federation of Master Builders nationally, National Association of Jewellers, and about another 40 associations that we're
over 50
now. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
they keep growing. It keeps growing, which is fantastic. That's kind of where we sit, and very often my team's role on the business development side and business support side is to look at the proactive side of things. So you've got your advice lines, you've got your document library. That's great, that's fantastic. That's when you need help, that's when you need a document, that's when you need to speak to somebody about a HR matter. My team looks after the other side of things, which is, are you compliant? Are you where you need to be? And Quest can help get you there.
Yeah. So in that way, you kind of have advice lines, document library. If you are aware of an issue or a particular gap that your business has in terms of compliance, but in our experience, the kind of most people aren't aware of those gaps in their compliance. How do you know something you don't know?
That's exactly right. That's probably the biggest challenge. And also, if a business does have insurance for things like employment tribunals or health and safety prosecution, again, like any insurance, are they going to pay out if you're not where you need to be? Probably not. And that tends to be, a lot of businesses say, I've got insurance. That's great. Are you where you need to be? We all drive cars. If we tried to make a claim on our insurance and the MOT was out, would we get the claim through? No, we wouldn't. It's the same thing. It's very, very similar.
Absolutely. And I think that kind of touches on the reason why we wanted to introduce this podcast. We've mentioned that community that we've built and that we're continuing to try to develop and build further. And that's kind of the reason for this podcast. We already run webinars on legislation changes, and send out email campaigns and various things to our clients to keep them up to date with the legislation changes. But a lot of the time, hearing the proper and official HR guidance can seem a little daunting to a lot of people. So I think to kind of break down what's really happening for businesses in a more bite-sized conversational way, demystifying a lot of it, I think that's important. And I think in our experience, that's what a lot of businesses struggle with, is understanding the updates, and they just want it in layman's terms. So that's the aim of this podcast. In order to do that, we're going to be talking through each episode kind of a real world issue that we're having, whether that's an issue that we've experienced on our advice line or a user submitted question, which we'll touch on later. We're going to be talking through real world issues that businesses are actually facing, and hopefully coming away with some clear guidance and best practices on what people can do to navigate those issues.
Yeah, we know that employers don't have the time. They're so busy. I was talking to a guy the other day, he's doing an 18-hour day and he'd done it for 5 days straight. Wow. So as such, is he going to want to read the newsletter that tells him about the latest employment law legislation in his free time? Absolutely not. That's where hopefully this podcast can come in, because
just stick it on
absolutely
in the car.
Pop it on in the car when he's driving to work, on the train, into the office. That's kind of what we want to achieve with this.
100%. Yeah, we want it to be short, so it's easy to fit into your day, whether you're on your commute, grabbing a coffee, as you say, or just wanting a quick refresher on a key issue. These bite-sized episodes will hopefully provide you all the guidance you'll need.
And we mean this. If you have a specific question or a specific issue, you don't have to tell us who you are, your business. Just give us some information, and we'll do our best to fit it into a podcast if we feel it's a relevant kind of subject that's coming up a lot, either on the advice lines or through our direct customers. It happens, and very often we get asked the same question 45 different ways. So that's absolutely fine if you ask it the 46th. We don't mind that at all.
Absolutely, yeah. So if you've got any burning questions you'd like us to cover in future episodes, email us at marketing@questcover.com and we'll be happy to cover them in a future episode. I think that kind of brings us to a close.
Absolutely.
That's a quick snapshot of what Heads Up HR and Quest in general are all about. Short, practical and focused on the real challenges UK businesses are facing. So thank you for joining with me, Miles.
Thank you for inviting me.
No worries, we're excited to get started. We hope that you guys will find these conversations useful. You'll be sure to be hearing from ours again in future episodes. But in the meantime, thanks for listening to this introductory episode. As I say, if you've got any questions you'd like us to cover, email us at marketing@questcover.com and we'll cover it in a future episode. But until then, take care. And remember, when it comes to evolving HR and health and safety requirements, it always pays to get the heads up. That's all for this episode of Heads Up HR. Thanks for joining us. Be sure to follow and share the podcast, and we'll be back soon with more HR updates and insights from Quest Cover.